What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to episode 2 of X Factor Fantasy Football. And I'm so glad that you decided to join us again. Y'all know what time it is. We got the crew. We got the whole crew in the house today because, people work. Everybody got jobs. We got stuff that we got to be doing. My boy Jordan be flying all around the country doing films and documentaries and whatnot. That's the future James Cameron right there. What's up, bro? How you feeling today?
Feeling good, man. Happy to be back for episode 2. Glad y'all held it down for the first one. And yeah, man, it's ready to get into all these matchups that we had this week and for this week's coming up.
Did you win your matchups last weekend?
Not in our league. No, I have 5 leagues. I was 3-2, so 60% not bad, but couple close losses.
Okay, look at that.
That's some real dedication.
That's a fact. Yeah, that's a lot of time.
I would draft tonight if I could. We're already in the season.
What about you, Jenna? How you feeling? How's your league going so far?
I got a win in week 1, so I'm feeling good about that. But week 2 doesn't look great for me. Like when I looked ahead at the matchups and stuff, and a lot of it based off of week 1, right? Like how many yards were teams allowing, rushing yards, passing yards. What I know we're gonna get to that segment, so I won't give away exactly what I think is going to happen there yet, but I don't think my players on my team are specifically set up for success in week 2.
Right. For sure. Well, y'all, we got a lot to tap into. So we're going to start off with the waiver wire guest that you need to be targeting for this upcoming week for week 2. We're also going to talk about Thursday Night Football. You got a great matchup, the Eagles versus the Vikings. A lot to be talked about with that game. And then we're also going to talk about some of our favorite matchups for week 2 as a whole, y'all. But look, so we're going to just basically list a couple of names that you're looking forward to or you're looking at for the waiver wire for this week. Jenna, if you don't mind, I want to start with you. Then Jordan, you can follow up. Is there anybody in particular that you're looking at for this week's waiver wire that you think people will be glad to get in a 16, 12, or 10-man league?
Well, I did make a move in our league, right, for I think he's a tight end. Puka Naku? Am I saying it right?
Receiver for the Rams, yeah.
He's a receiver.
Receiver. I made a move for him off our waiver wire as soon as I could after week 1. I thought he had a great week 1. Obviously, you don't want to over react to a guy getting a touchdown, but a lot of guys who were not expected to get touchdowns did kind of. We talked about this in episode 1, right? Swipa, you give the ball to the guy who you trust to get it down the field, but then sometimes they'll hand it off to the backup just to get it for the TD. And those are good points. So I liked picking him up. A lot of the guys that I liked on my list for waiver wire pickups are already picked up in our league because we have really smart owners in our league. Like all these guys were drafted actually kind of high. It's kind of hilarious. Most of the guy I saw number 1 was Tyler Algier.
Mm-hmm.
I saw his name everywhere. Everybody's trying to pick him up off the waiver wire, and he went kind of high in our league. I remember him being drafted, and all of us were like, that was a smart pick,
Right. Yeah. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, I'll keep it with the Rams. I'll go with Kyron, the back. I'll go with him. When I'm looking at waiver pickups, especially in our league, so our league's a fab league for those who don't know.
Right.
And so we got $100 to spend for the whole season. Got to budget it out best you can, try to make the right bids and see if your bid gets accepted. So when I'm looking for a waiver wire pickup, I'm looking for reliability as far as volume, sustainable over time. I'm looking for, if I'm looking at your prior performances, I'm looking at, how fluky or non-fluky they were. Obviously looking at the matchup that you did it against, all these different factors to really try to, as best we can, project ahead to what's gonna happen. And Cam over there, Cam Akers with the Rams, he was the darling in his rookie season. He was the guy.
Is there more disappointing running back over the last 4 years than Cam Akers?
Not due to injury.
Taylor?
No, I can't. He's certainly up there because he was the darling. He was the guy, and he was proving it when he got going later in his rookie season. Got hurt a little bit.
He's been drafted in the 4th round.
I know people are still this is what I'm saying. People are still overcome with the luster and the idea of Cam Akers as opposed to actual Cam Akers at this point. And so, he got in the doghouse a little bit last year. Is out of it this year. He had some volume in week 1, but he is on a short leash. And a guy like Kyron, who came in for people who are really tapped into fantasy, he was a name that was on the radar even last year, as far as thinking like, okay, this is a guy who could be the guy. So coming into this season, we didn't really know what to expect from this Rams backfield. They said Akers was the guy, but smart people, in my opinion, were hesitant on that even, and that kind of came to fruition in week 1, where Kyron, was the guy who scored. Kyron was getting the important touches. It was Kyron. So it's just a matter of,
yeah. And by the way, until garbage time, Kyron was out snapping and had more touches than Cam Akers as well.
So exactly, and he's getting the more important touches.
Right.
He's getting the more important touches too. It's not even just the volume of the touches. It's like the money touches are going to him. So I don't think that that's something that you just see in week 1 and all of a sudden just reverts completely to the opposite in week 2. Rams backfield is unpredictable, but Kyron's going to be involved at the very least. And the fact that he's getting those valuable touches and the fact that he did well with them, and it came in a win when no one is expecting them to win in week 1 period, I only see that boding well for him moving forward. So that's, especially if you need a back, we know backs are valuable in fantasy. That's the guy for me.
Yeah, it's so funny that you were talking about this, right? Because going into week 1, the only person we heard on the Rams offense was Cooper Kupp went down. But everybody, this is going to be Tyler Higbee's year. This is going to be a tight end 1 season for Tyler Higbee. And then all of a sudden you get, again, Puka Nacua. He's 6'2", 22 years old, 205-pound rookie. And he gets 15 targets. 15 targets.
No faking that.
Catches 10 balls for 119 yards. That's crazy volume, especially in your first game. So for me, they're going to be without Cooper Kupp until week 5. So again, if you have the chance, he's probably already gone in your league, but if you have the chance to go get him, that's the guy that I'm absolutely targeting. I think that would be a good get. I also like something Jenna did earlier today. Jenna can, explain what happened exactly when she made this selection on her waiver wire at some point. But I did like Kendrick Bourne. She picked up Kendrick Bourne. Week 1, Kendrick Bourne actually had a very good game. Again, Kendrick Bourne's been a little bit he bounced around a little bit. He's very talented. He's 6'1", 205. This is year 6 for him. But Kendrick Bourne last week had 11 targets, 6 receptions for 64 yards and 2 TDs. He had a 91% snap percentage, and he was wide receiver 5 on the week. So again, this is how you should think about fantasy football. You want to find players that are premium positions: running back, receiver, tight end. And you want to see if they get a significant snap share, because the more they're on the field, typically the more volume they're going to get. Especially, they have a couple players in that offense that you're starting, that you're utilizing. Really is Stevenson. And then after that, you don't know. So the fact that you have a potential number 1 receiver in a mid-level offense that's going to have more of a target share this year, Kendrick Bourne, that's why it was a really great pick for Jenna. I think that was a great idea. But, we're also about teaching people basics of fantasy football as well. So, Jenna, would you like to maybe just explain what happened a little bit earlier today? Again, just let it give us some insight.
Okay, well, Jordan mentioned we're a fab league, whatever that means. Not fabulous, because it's not fabulous. That's not what it stands for. We also can be fabulous. Yeah, I feel like most girls, if you told them oh yeah, you got some fab dollars, they're going to that shoe spot online where you get a membership and you get a certain amount of shoes per week or something, or month. I don't know what this was. I just saw I had money, and then I saw somebody else in the chat said that they put money and players together for a trade or some kind of combination. So I was like, oh, I have to put money down. And I got the Sleeper app should help you with this, right? They should walk you through this stuff, because I'm not reaching out to y'all in the chat. You're all yelling at each other, mad at each other, not wanting to. I feel like this is the most competitive fantasy league, obviously, I've ever played in. But there's nobody cares in our chat. Everybody's going after each other. I feel like if people want to win as bad as it seems, nobody's going to answer this question for me. So I'm I don't know what this $100 is. I'll put $100 on this player. I didn't know what is the equivalent, right? Is 100 lasting me forever? Is it just today's money? You know what I mean? So I didn't know what the equivalent was, and I put $100 down on it.
But to be
or
fair,
$100, whatever that is.
So, but look, it all works out. If Kendrick Bourne ends up being a wide receiver 1 this year, and all of a sudden he goes for 1,200 yards and maybe 14 touchdowns, and hey, then it works out. But so we're gonna.
I will add this. I'll add this too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I add this. There is $100 is a little overboard, of course, but there is some wisdom to that where it's like you do get in fab leagues from what I've heard, because this is my first fab league as well, but I've been preparing for fab for years. So I know a lot about it, even though I haven't been able to convince people in my other leagues to do it. There's some wisdom to not hoarding the money till later in the season, because you hear so often, and from my friends who have been in fab, I've heard so often that they or their contemporaries are saving the money for something that might come along, and then they end the season and have $55 in their coffer still, where it's like, well, you could have spent that money and helped your team earlier in the year, but you're waiting for this potential. So there is this balance of you got to save a little bit of money for something that comes available, but you also got to spend it because instead of just waiting for the next best thing, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm like the Suns owner. I'm making everybody happy. I'm going after people right out the gate. Like we don't have time to wait. Come on.
All the chips in, championship posts on Kendrick Bourne, right? So again, I think this is a great thing she brings up. Now, I personally know for a fact that if Jenna would have texted me or called me, which she has easiest access to my phone, then I would have explained it to her. But I think, again, when you're in a new league and then you're around a competitive league, you don't know. So I think this is good for the audience and the people that watch this to say, like, look, if I have a question, I can always ask my commissioner. I can always ask the co-commissioner or a friend in the league. And then that way you can get just an explanation on what's happening. So, we're going to make that adjustment. So I got to go back in the system because, I don't want, $100 on, week 1 waiver wire. Because again, if you're going to have an injury at some point in time, or there's going to be a handcuff that comes open for you, like if you got an injury at running back, you want to make sure that you have $5 to use. Because trust me, there's almost nothing worse than if for instance, I have Javonte Williams. Say Javonte Williams turned an ankle out 5 weeks. And Jordan is a snake in fantasy football, and he takes $22 out for some IGP run. I would be devastated. Devastated. So you want to have fab money available. That way you can just continue to get the players that are on your deck, or, you can make a move. By the way, we have a question in the chat. The question is, should I start Brandon Ayuk or Garrett Wilson this week? Brandon Ayuk or Garrett Wilson?
I have opinions.
We have so Brandon Ayuk plays the Rams this week at 4:05 p.m. Eastern, and then Garrett Wilson plays the Dallas Cowboys this weekend at 4:25. So personally, if I had to make a decision between these two, given the fact that Zach Wilson is now starting for the New York Jets, I might be more likely to trust Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy, y'all. But I don't know how y'all feel about that.
I feel the same way. I feel like between Purdy and Ayuk, the chemistry's there, and it's been there. You heard about it in camp. I think you saw it a little bit last season. And I think you're seeing it in full display on week 1. Ayuk in a vacuum is always a guy who has been highly touted when he first got into the league. Right. Took a little bit for that. I remember having him my first year when he was a rookie, having him on my fantasy team, and I was the guy who was like one of the only people like holding this bastion of hope, like it's gonna come around, and eventually it came around. And I don't think it's gonna go anywhere.
On top of that, I was gonna say, on top of that, Dallas allowed like some of they were really good on their pass defense. Like they were insane, right? Obviously, it's a matchup thing against New York, but I still think with, like you said about Wilson starting at QB now, like Garrett Wilson will probably get a lot of looks. Will it be as accurate? Will it be as easy to catch for him? I'd rather go with Brandon Ayuk too.
And that there's been a lot of talk about that O-line for the Jets, right? And how they weren't holding up. They couldn't even hold up for Aaron for 4 snaps to keep him upright. And the 3 snaps before that, it was a disaster. I don't know that it's going to get any better against the Cowboys. So for that reason alone,
is that the most unlucky play you think you remember in recent history?
Yeah, because it's a play where Aaron was supposed to get rid of the ball by then, but he's probably made that quote unquote mistake dozens of times in his career, where his 3 steps supposed to come out and the ball doesn't come out. It's never resulted in an Achilles tear. And this one time when, on the first game with the Jets, they're running out with the American flag. This is the one time that an Achilles tear happens from a mistake you've probably made dozens of times in your career. I mean, talk about the script. The script was definitely scripting in the wrong way for that one.
Yeah, Jen and I texted each other as soon as that happened, and we were both in disbelief that this happened to the Jets of all people as well.
Again,
the history that they have, Testaverde, Pennington, and then Brett Favre.
Even well, this is one I haven't seen mentioned a lot. Even because he wasn't out, but even when they had Brett, remember Brett started really fast and was doing really, I think it was like 8-3 or something like that. And he got his shoulder got hurt, and he was never the same when he was with them. So I even count that one as like
remember that Ryan Fitzpatrick 2014 season too. Remember they had Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker.
Yep,
they were destroying folks, and then in the playoffs they just Ryan just turned back into a pumpkin.
Yep, yeah, Ryan with the pumpkin in that case, and the other cases with the injuries, like it's quarterback luck is certainly hasn't been there.
All right, so we got another question, then we're going to get to Thursday Night Football. So we have one more question. Should I start Alexander Madison, or it looks like Rachaad White? And that is an easy answer for me. Alexander Madison, 1,000%. I do not trust Mr. Inefficiency, Rachaad White. But to be fair, Rachaad White this weekend, he is playing versus the Chicago Bears front. And then obviously Madison is now playing versus the Eagles front. So quickly, just again, one-word answer, Madison or White?
Madison.
All right, cool. Madison. So, y'all, we're trying to
keep that as a Rachaad White owner.
Look, I get it. And then on top of that, just the value alone, you drafted Madison probably in the third round, fourth round. So, all right, y'all, we got Thursday Night Football. We have the Minnesota Vikings with apparently the wide receiver one in fantasy possibly. And then on top of that, they're playing against the Eagles, who Jalen Hurts struggled a little bit last weekend. Another one of those underperformers. What are the key matchups to look at? And again, if you're an owner or of someone or a manager rather of Jalen Hurts, of DeAndre Swift, of AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, or even Dallas Goedert, and then on top of that, Kirk Cousins, Alexander Madison, you have Justin Jefferson, you got KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. Is this a situation in a game where you're playing all of those guys, or some of those guys you're a little bit concerned about given the matchup?
I'll go first. I'm not. I think this early in the season, for me, I view the first 3 or 4 weeks in fantasy, especially as you've heard Bill Belichick say, like the first 4 weeks. I think it was Bill Belichick who said like the first 4 weeks of the actual NFL season are like you're gathering data, right? You're really trying to see what your team is, what the identity is, who you can trust in certain situations and not. I kind of view the first 3 weeks of fantasy in the same vein, where it's like, I'm starting my guys that I drafted high, who I would typically start. Even if it's, there could be a borderline case where if I drafted really well and I have some guys, 1 or 2 guys on my bench who are flex worthy, so that one of my flex spots might fluctuate depending on the matchup. But for the most part, I'm starting everyone for sure. So I'm starting my Madison. I'm starting, Jettas, of course. I'm starting Jalen. I'm starting Hawkinson. I'm starting all my regular guys. Where it comes into question for me is a guy like Kirk. And, the Eagles defense is, especially the front seven, is can be hellacious. And we know how Kirk can turn into a pumpkin when he's under any semblance of pressure. And so that is one of those cases where if it's between a guy like Kirk or somebody who is around that same.
How about, let me ask you this: would you be more comfortable with Sam Howell, for instance, versus the Broncos, or Kirk Cousins versus the Eagles?
I probably wouldn't go that far. I'd probably go Kirk. I need to see a little bit more of Sam. For me, it's more so like a guy like a Dak, right? These guys these guys. I'm thinking of these guys who are in that same 8 to 12 range, where it's like some people have 2 of them. I know I have both of them. I brought those 2 names because I have both of them on roster, and I know some other guys who have a Geno or a Kirk or a Dak. They might have 2 of them on the roster so they can kind of match up hunt. That's where it becomes more borderline for me.
Who do you think you trust? Really quickly, and then Jen, I would love for you to speak about this. Who do you think you trust the rest of the season? Tua or Kirk?
Oh, Tua. The scheme, the weapons. I mean, they were flying around last year when he wasn't hurt. It's Tua easy for me at this point. And I didn't expect to say that, but it's Tua.
What about you, Jenna? What do you think about the matchup tomorrow, Vikings and Eagles?
I think for the Vikings, I think Justin Jefferson will have a lot better week 2 than he had week 1. Like his numbers, I know I thought we mentioned him as like being disappointing a little bit, like coming in a little bit lower than what we thought for week 1. I firmly believe like their wide receivers are going to get more touches because of how bad the Eagles pass defense was. They are top, like worst 4, allowed 306 passing yards in week 1. So I just think like, I hear what you're saying, Jordan, about Kirk for sure. Like under pressure, he's not like the guy that I'd love to have. But if the pass defense, if the corners are going to allow for open targets, like I do trust Kirk to actually hit his targets, especially when it's Justin Jefferson, you know? So I'm super high on a matchup for Justin this week. TJ, I would definitely start TJ as well. Neither of them are on my roster, so I can't. But yeah, I like
the rookie like Jordan Addison. He did have a touchdown about
4 for 61, I believe. 4 catches,
4 for 61 and a TD.
Yep.
Obviously, now he's playing versus Slade and Bradbury. Would you feel confident if you had to start him as a flex option?
Yeah, I probably feel confident with that.
Okay.
I mean, going off of week 1, right? Like I said, you don't want to overreact. Like the guys who prove themselves all season long, like Justin Jefferson, like I'm not overreacting. Like Jordan said, if I drafted you high, I'm probably playing you this week. Like my roster, I was looking at some of the guys I have outside of this Thursday night game, and I don't think that they're particularly set up for great matchups. Like the Broncos, I have a running back, and he's going up against the Broncos. Their rush defense was pretty good, so I'm not thrilled for that, right? But in this Thursday night matchup, I like the wide receivers for the Vikings to have a big.
Yeah, so I am of the mindset, play everybody. Because I thought the Pats were going to do crap. They were down 16-0, and all of a sudden this game, and I'm over here looking like, okay, but where's Slade? Where's Bradbury? Where's this vaunted defense? So I think that I would be guaranteed starts in this game for me are going to be also this little bit of a risk. So you can, matter of fact, this might be my play of the week. I think that if Kenneth Gainwell doesn't play this week, I think DeAndre Swift has a good game. I think DeAndre Swift can have a good game. I think he gets more volume. It's a little bold just because you never know what you're going to get with him. I'm starting Jalen. I'm starting Swift, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert for sure. On the Viking side, Madison. If I have a better quarterback than Kirk, I'm not starting Kirk. But, I think Kirk can obviously put up some yards. I think Jordan Addison is a good flex. And then obviously you got Hawkinson as well. So I think there's a lot of viable players to play in this game. And so let us know what happens.
I will bring up this one little caveat real quick. This game is being played in prime time, right?
Yes.
Okay, Kirk Cousins prime time.
Well, technically it's Thursday night football, so is it really prime time though?
We might give him a little bit of a skate. Games after 4:15 p.m. Kirk, I don't know, but fine option. All
right, so now y'all, we are getting to best week 2 NFL matchups. So are there 2 or 3 games that you all have seen for this weekend that you are very excited for, that you think the fantasy points are going to be flying around in? Is there another version of the Chargers and the Miami Dolphins that you're seeing this week? Or is there some disappointments, like you're going to see Joe Burrow versus the Cleveland Browns again? Do you see any major underperformances or even a game where you're going to see a lot of overperformances?
I have 2 for you. One on each side. So for me, overperformances, a game where you can see an explosion. I'm looking squarely at that Chiefs and Jaguars game.
That's a fact.
I think the Chiefs are mad. I think they felt like, even though there were ways that each team could have given that game away last Thursday, I think they felt like they gave that game away. They actually had a lot of drops. There were more opportunities for big plays that they just left on the field, even with their receiving core being what it was, even with Kelsey being out. I don't expect the same drop rate this week. Kelsey, Andy Reid said today at practice that they expected him to give it a go. I think he was at practice today as well. So, and then we saw what, the Jaguars did last week. Really looked like he had missed a beat. T-Law looked like T-Law.
I am so angry that I didn't objectively take. I think that's probably going to be my biggest regret of the year, is not taking Calvin Ridley in 3rd round in every league that I was in.
Oh, yeah.
He was available in every 3rd round league, in every single league that I was in.
I think he's going to end up being a perfectly fine wide receiver one. I think people are just hesitant, me included, because he hasn't played in a year. Like, you don't know if it's going to be rust or whatever, but he hadn't missed a beat. So, and then, Zay is another guy over there who, he's on some waivers. He wasn't on our waivers because, like Jenna said, our players are smart. But another guy who might be out there for you and who did well last week. So I'm looking at that one on the positive. On the negative, I'm going to look at that Bears Bucks game.
Oh yeah, bunch
and
of
that
mess.
could be 6-3. It could be 10-7. I don't expect that game to be a pretty watch based off of watching both teams play in week one. Based off of the limitations of Baker, based off of that, but still on the converse, based on that Bucks defense being what it is and what I think is going to be all year, which is really good. And Justin struggling throwing the ball in week one. I think that one's going to be a rock fight. So those are two for me.
I actually love that. Okay. Jenna, what about you? Game you love, game you don't love? We can't hear you, Jenna.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. There we go.
Okay. I also had the Chiefs-Jags game marked down. Like Jordan said, I think if Kelsey comes back, obviously he's going to get a bunch of touches. But I feel like that game's going to be played in the air, and they're just going to pass, and it's going to be available to them all day. But the game that probably – there's a lot of matchups. I'm not a fan of the Titans versus the Chargers. Like Derrick Henry, I don't think he's going to have a good week. I think his numbers are probably going to be a little bit lower.
Like you just hoping that he's a Chargers fan.
I have Derrick Henry on my roster. I want him to have a good week. It's not about the Chargers. Like, they ain't going to win. They're not going to win anyways because Brandon Staley is ruining them. So I've given up on them actually winning. But I want my fantasy team to do well. Like we already talked about Cam Akers. I don't think that the Rams are going to have a great running game this week against that 49er defense. Personally, I know that what we talked about, one of their guys off the waiver wire for sure could be a good pickup, but I don't think this is his week where he's going to perform. If you do pick him up, don't be disappointed if he doesn't go crazy this particular week, just because I thought the 49ers defense looked strong as ever, I guess. The one game that really has me focused is Dallas Jets. I feel like Dallas is just going to run all over the Jets. I think they're going to have a great week. I do think Dak's going to have more than 6 receptions, connections with somebody. There's got to be something more there. But I actually think they beat them by ground and run all over the Jets. So we'll see. Yeah. I think it's just going to be a good matchup. I feel like there's things that Dallas does well that the Jets actually defend well, and vice versa. So I think it's just going to be a good game.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner versus CeeDee Lamb. And then obviously Reed versus Brandon Cook's going to be really interesting. And then obviously Stephon Gilmore and freaking Trevon Diggs. I told everybody that was going to be the number one Madden defense on the game this year, and nobody believed me. I just don't understand that. Anyway, so the games that I'm looking forward, y'all. Look, I'm standing on my 10. All right, Joe Burrow. Let's go. Bounce back, baby. Bounce back. I'm expecting Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon. They're playing against the Ravens. If the Ravens don't get home, it's going to be an air raid offense. T. Higgins, 0 points last game. I'm standing on my 10. Joe Burrow is going to be a top 5 quarterback this week. Jamar Chase going to be a top 3 receiver this week. T. Higgins, top 12 receiver this week. And I think Joe Mixon will be a top 18 running back this week, which means he's going to be firmly in the RB2 area this week. I think that the Ravens are also going to have a couple players have a good game. I think Lamar is going to have a bounce back game for what he did with the Texans as well. That, for me, is going to be a show. I also, y'all, love, outside of the Chiefs and the Jaguars, I think that's going to be a good game as well. But, y'all, I think a game that I'm probably a little bit sneaky high on, that Bills-Raiders game. Because neither of them played great defense. So I'm curious to see Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and obviously James Cook. And then, hey, Devontae Adams, apparently, the Bills defense is kind of fraudulent right now or whatever else. So, hey, maybe Devontae Adams has another great game. Jacoby Myers, and then obviously Josh Jacobs didn't do anything last week. I think it's going to be a bounce-back game for a lot of those players. I think that could be a higher scoring game than people are realizing. So I got that and the Bengals being my 2 over performances of the week. Under performances might be the Falcons and the Green Bay Packers. Bijan Robinson versus that Packers front. And on top of that, Tyler Algier getting a lot of reps at the running back position as well. Outsnapped him even last week in week 1 as well. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be really good week. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of great matchups, y'all. And we'll see.
One more note on that Raiders matchup: Josh Jacobs versus that Bills front who gave up a few big runs to Brees in week 1. So there might be an opportunity for him there.
Yeah, I also agree with that, y'all. But look, any final thoughts or anything on this waiver wire special that we had going on from episode 2?
Need a bounce back win this week. That's all I'm focused on.
Yeah, me and Jordan.
I just think.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's funny that you're so high on Burrow when he ain't even your quarterback. You didn't hear Swipa say anything about Justin Fields because
he's my other league. I got Burrow in my other league. I got the stack in my other league. I'm telling you, I didn't get 10 points from Chase and Burrow combined. That should never happen again. It was so bad, Jenna, that I stopped caring. I didn't even care that I lost. I didn't even care I lost.
You not caring is like the rest of us normal amount of caring. So.
All right, y'all. Well, look, this has been a great episode. Episode 2, the X Factor Fantasy Football Podcast show. Everything, bro. We got a great episode coming all season. As you can see, Jenna and Jordan are amazing. They know their stuff. They lock in, and this is going to be a really, really, really great season. I can't wait, y'all. By the way, quickly, one-word answer. Should this person trade Keenan Allen for Jalen Waddle full PPR league?
No. Wait, he's getting Waddle? He's getting Waddle, yes.
Yeah, he
That's
would
what
get
I'm
Waddle.
wondering.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Then yes. Yeah.
Y'all tripping on Keenan Allen, man. I don't know. That's kind of a wash to me. I just think Waddle, obviously having Tyreek Hill on the field, but Waddle can still have 110 catches again. So
if the trade includes a hamstring coming back with Keenan Allen, then I might consider doing it. But I'm not taking on Keenan Allen if he's not coming with a spare hamstring. That's just me, though.
All right, y'all. Well, look, shout out. Make sure y'all subscribe to the X Factor Fantasy Football. You can see it right there. Subscribe to that channel. Make sure that you continue to support the content. Support Jenna. You can see her handle for her social media accounts. Obviously, my brother Jordan. You can find his social media accounts as well on Twitter. And y'all already know me, Swipa, Mr. Nobody. You ain't got to follow me. But look, y'all. Love y'all. Y'all my people. We see y'all later on the other side.